Hi, and welcome to Filmmakers Compass Podcast, a show where we talk about movies and war movies. I'm D-Man, joined by CP. CP, how are you doing today?
Dude, happy belated 4th of July.
Yes, and I don't know if you could tell, if for anybody that's just listening but isn't watching, I am actually back on my normal set. I'm back at my desk recording this podcast as it should be.
Yeah, dude, man, you've been traveling a lot. All the fun places too.
Yeah, I went
Cleveland,
to Cleveland,
Columbus.
Columbus, Lancaster. I've been out of town for almost 2 weeks. I came back for like 2 days and then I took off again, and it's been a whole thing. So at the top of the episode, CP, I wanted to apologize to you and then, of course, to our listeners for screwing up the release schedule last week. It partially travel and then my own fault for screwing up and missing our record day. So I apologize, but hopefully we have a good episode in store this week and we can kind of make up and move on.
Well, all we can do is put out a good one this week, man.
All right. Well, let's get into it. First up in our shout outs at the top of the episode this week, I want to give a big happy birthday shout out to my mom and my father-in-law, who actually share the same birthday. That's June 30th. So I just wanted to wish both of you a very happy birthday, and I hope you had a fantastic day.
Happy birthday.
Yes. Now, also on June 30th, I have to give a happy retirement to my dad, who has officially made the move into retirement.
Wow.
So June 30th was his last day of full on professional work. Now, I don't know what he'll be doing or what his plans are. Maybe we'll bring him on this show and ask him.
But we should.
Dad, just wanted to say happy retirement. I hope you're enjoying that so far. So June 30th was like a big day.
Big day. Lots of people in your life. Monumental milestones.
So I also wanted to give a shout out to Drucker, who went on a long rant on Twitter, CP. I think he tagged you in it about the Nuggets. And Drucker, I read the whole rant, and he basically got super pissed at me for, I guess, phrasing that the Nuggets had an easy path to the title, and which is, his argument is fair. I think all I was saying was that based on the seeding, which when you actually look at, I think it was like 2 years prior to this NBA playoffs, the same four teams were in the Western Conference Finals like 2 years ago. And the Heat have been twice and the Lakers won once. So even though they were both 8 and 7 seeds and they were ranked lower, I hear your argument, Drucker. I get it. So, but he also goes on to say, and now I'm done ranting about the Nuggets, LOL. Good podcast. I didn't see any of the movies mentioned because I have zero desire to see The Flash, which, if you're not a DC person, I found that The Flash was a bit of a hard recommend. I feel like it really was kind of, a bunch of Easter eggs and rewards and everything for people that liked the DCEU and all that. So I do kind of get that. He said, gonna wait till it's streaming somewhere. I do, like I said, I do recommend check it out. It's not original per se, but you might still enjoy it. It's a good popcorn flick. And he said, I'm going to see Transformers this weekend and I can't wait. Love Beast Wars. So hope you enjoyed that. Would love to get your thoughts on it, because I know, we definitely talked about that, and, CP liked it. So yeah, Drucker, I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are. He also was super pissed, CP, that they canceled the live action version of Batman Beyond, which is collateral damage from The Flash. So what are your thoughts, CP, here?
Man,
what
I am so mad about this too. I think Batman fans, DC fans, comic book fans, there's always sort of been this theme in the periphery of the internet where people have been hoping and praying that we would get a live action Batman Beyond movie with Michael Keaton playing the role of an older Bruce Wayne mentoring a new Batman for a new generation. Now, they
got right there
is pretty popular. The cartoon from the late 90s was really very popular. And it was going to happen. They greenlit it. Keaton was signed on, and then, as James Gunn insists on ruining my life and trying to ruin everybody else's life, he pulled the plug on the movie. And I think the real shame is, and we talked about this on the last episode of the podcast, Keaton was probably the best part of the Flash movie. And I know a lot of people who went to see it, not to see Flash, but to see 1989 Batman back in action. So I think it's a really missed opportunity. And I'm super bummed too, because I have wanted this one for so long to happen.
You know what's weird too is, like, after you see The Flash, like with the idea of Michael Keaton coming back as Batman, and I'm not going to say anything about, the movie itself, but they really did set it all the way up. They teed it up to be able to go ahead and do this. I mean, you could even do kind of an offshoot movie in like a side universe now that just, it's like, hey, we just want to do it. And I think there's enough fan interest that people really would want to go see it because people love Michael Keaton as Batman. So I'm just shocked that they got it all the way to like right there. You're like, I mean, you could have done it. With Keaton is the thing is that's the thing is it's not a matter of like they can always do Batman Beyond and just cast someone else.
And I believe the plan is to do one with a different old Batman, which is stupid.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make
sense.
Give
us the guy.
Yeah, and it actually works because the idea of having an older Batman for us as the viewer, it makes sense to have picked a person who had played Batman in the past so that we have that connection to them the same way that you would to Bruce Wayne in the show or the comic.
Yep.
So yeah, that was kind of crazy. I was a little surprised about that.
I'm with you, Drucker. It's criminal. I'm really, really mad about it.
So next up in our shout outs is Ivor at Giraffe 16.5. And he said, and I actually could see there being a way of working Power Rangers into Transformers and Zords are in a similar vein. So CP, what are your thoughts on that?
What he is referring to is the kind of teaser scene at the very end of Transformers Beast Wars, where it is hinted to the greater potential Hasbro universe being built here. And I agree. I think it would be really cool. We were talking on social media about what are some of the different franchises that Hasbro owns that are relevant for this greater universe. And obviously Hasbro has a bunch of really cool things, but some of them are properties like Nerf, and you're not really sure how they're going to make a Nerf or nothing movie, but who knows?
It would be interesting to see. I mean, I think the Power Rangers, as a team, like, kind of going for that shared universe, that Avengers style team up movie, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would be fun.
I think. Plus, it would be cool to see,
Power Rangers, G.I. Joes, Transformers all fighting on the same team. Like that's like every 8-year-old's dream.
Yep. 90s kids right there. 80s, 90s. Yeah. Ivor goes on to say on a totally different note, Ryan Reynolds is getting crap about ad libs. Deadpool 3 is still filming because script is finished. What are your thoughts on improv on set? Is it really changing the script, or the idea of the story is still there and you're just changing some words or jokes? And he does say, I don't recall Ryan getting script credit on Deadpool 1 or 2 for his improv. So what is it? Both of you guys went to film school and are more learned on the subject than I. CP?
My take is this. Obviously, having directed comedies and knowing lots of people who work in the comedy space on the television series and the film side, ad-libbing is expected. In fact, most comedians take a role and kind of just make it their own. A lot of directors, and I'm of this mentality, think, it's good to get the line the way it's written just so you have the coverage, but the rest of it is let the actor, make the role their own and see what you get, because a lot of the best lines in comedies were totally ad-libbed. I think about, there was a great article where they talked about how Bill Murray changed dialogue in the Western world when he said, this chick is toast. And that was totally an improv line. So,
well, I think the thing with ad libs is particularly, he's mentioning Deadpool here, but in general, when you're doing comedy, I think you're testing out some jokes and punchlines probably on the cast and crew as you're filming, and you're seeing what, you're probably getting actual feedback from those people in real time about, is this working or is this not working? So I imagine that would happen on things like sitcoms and all this other stuff. But I do want to say that I knew an actor, Joey Tribbiani, who took credit for for writing his own lines, and he got fired from Days of Our Lives. So no, I'm just kidding. That's a storyline from Friends. But Joey did indeed get fired for claiming in an interview that he wrote some of his own lines, but really all he did was like change some words around, and the writers got pissed. So I imagine there is kind of a line somewhere in here where it's like, hey, ad-libbing and contributing to the jokes and all this will not get you credit, won't get you, anything related to that, but we're just trying to get this scene to be the best it can be. When you start getting into actual credits and writers and this and that, that's where I think you're walking that line of like, hey, the writers are the writers. And just because you ad lib doesn't mean you get a writer credit.
Well, and I agree. Think about it. There's lots of times where actors will change lines even accidentally, right? Or they're in the middle of
Yeah.
doing a scene and they decide that a line isn't necessary because the emotion's already been conveyed through the performance. I don't think that means they've earned a writer's credit. The writer's job is to give the product that everyone is going to work off of and evolve. Editors evolve the story, actors evolve the story, cinematographers evolve the story as it's being executed.
One of the most famous ones that's not comedy is probably Han Solo saying, I know, which, I think was originally written as I love you too, or I love you, or whatever the line exactly was. And it just wasn't working. And I think Irvin Kershner, the director, just ended up telling Harrison Ford to like clear his mind. And he just said, go and say whatever comes to you. And that was what happened. And that's what they kept. I think they only even did one take of that, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, I think it's totally fine. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it probably results in better comedy overall. And yeah, I think credits is where it gets a little murky.
I agree.
So CP, that actually does it for my shout outs this week. Throw it over to you. Did you have any shout outs on this episode?
I have no shout outs on this episode. Sorry, everyone.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our topics this week. So first up, I want to talk to you a little, CP, about this because this is something that I feel like you and I would have just a long phone conversation about, or like if we were back in college, we'd go for a walk and just talk about it. But I want to, I've seen a lot of articles. There's been a lot of tweets, a lot of discussion about has Pixar lost their mojo? So this weekend, they released their new feature in theaters, which if you know Pixar, and this is part of the discussion, they have been releasing some of their new releases on Disney Plus, but this movie Elemental had its worst opening ever at around $30 million, which is, for Pixar, way under probably most estimates, but comparatively way under most of their other library of films. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think's happening here with Pixar? Is this just, a little bump in the road? And, because Pixar is known for having their magic formula, whether that's their creative dream team or their kind of story formula that they would adhere to. What do you think's going on here, and what's causing, Pixar to kind of falter here? And why do you think people are so quick to write them off and just, is it headline grabbing doom and gloom? What's going on here?
Well, I think part of it obviously is it's a catchy topic when we hear about the demise of Disney and Pixar anywhere. But I think there is something happening from the story perspective within Pixar. When you think back to the origins of Pixar, Pixar was telling stories that are very basic but incredibly universal, right?
Yes.
And they're told through the lens of something not even human, right? Toys, fish, cars, right? Things that we all understand, but they're telling a very human story, but it's a very basic human story.
And I hear you. Like, I mean, Toy Story is probably like one of the best examples, which is Woody he has a great fear of being replaced.
Yep.
But we've all probably felt that at some point, whether it's by a sibling, whether it's at work, or whether, it's on your baseball team, whatever it is. When you're a kid, you watch this movie, and who hasn't ever, the new shiny person steps in and you're like, oh my God, like I'm no longer the star. Yep. I'm no longer, the person. And I think that's universal. Sorry, that was just an example though.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I feel recently, and probably part of it is Pixar's looking at their demographics and their audience, and all the people like us who grew up as kids watching Pixar movies are now going to the theaters and watching Pixar movies as adults. But I feel like the storytelling is a little more complicated. They're focusing on more niche components of stories or problems or things that without quite the universal appearance of let's tell the most basic universal human-centric story imaginable. For example, when you look at Onward, right, it's a complex film dealing with grief and growing up and losing a parent, which everyone's going to experience that, but it's not quite the universal to the appeal of I'm worried that my friend has a new friend.
Well, and I think you did hit on something earlier too, that when you look at a film like Elemental or Onward or some of these other ones that Pixar has put out more recently, they're dealing with like elves or elements or feelings, but no longer toys and fish and cars,
Mm-hmm.
right? I feel like what Pixar was doing earlier in their formula was they were taking these kind of everyday objects and finding stories within, you know, obviously cars, like they go down Route 66, like they're finding things related to cars to kind of build this story out. But cars are something that we all understand, where I think when you're looking at like elements or elves or feelings, it's harder to get us to be like, I'm in. You kind of got to do a little bit more selling, a little bit more buy-in for the audience, because we're
Yeah.
like, I don't know, or like you look at Wally, he's a robot. We're like, we all know robots.
Or A Bug's Life. We all step on bugs all the time.
Yeah, So I think like one of the more abstract ones that I think worked when Pixar was newer was Monsters Inc. We all know
Mm.
monsters, but really that was one that I think really stood out. I love Monsters Inc., but the idea of, them scaring kids for power and like all this stuff, it's kind of a tougher sell. And I think they pulled it off really well. That's why I still have faith that like Pixar can turn this around. I
Mm.
just think that, some of the stuff that they're putting out, yeah, it's a little hard concepts. It's harder concepts, right? Like even in Elemental, they're in Element City, and you have to like kind of do a lot of world building legwork here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not just dropping us in a boy's bedroom, or you're not just dropping us on a, forgotten town where we're all like, we've all seen that. You're like, you kind of got to do some heavy lifting to make this place feel real. And that
Mm-hmm.
takes up story time. That takes up a lot of, what ordinarily it's like, hey, it was you do that through the visuals, right? Show don't tell. Now you kind of have to like set the rules. How does this even work? Does it
Yeah.
even work?
No, you're absolutely right.
And so, yeah, I think like when you look at things, which like Inside Out is generally universally regarded as great, and if you've seen it, I thought it was fantastic. Pixar nailed it, but that's hard. You have to explain how feelings work and how they work within the context of this story, and you got to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do it very succinctly and, like I said, hopefully in a visual way, so that you're not literally just explaining this to the audience, and that can be very tricky. It's hard to do. Where, right, like Finding Nemo, you just drop us in the ocean. We're like, I mean, we all have some idea of what that's like. you know just
Yeah.
let the visuals tell the story, and we get it. They have to travel a great distance.
No, absolutely.
So on that note, I kind of mentioned this when I first brought up the topic, but do you think this is the end of great Pixar and they'll just be another animation studio, or is this you know just headline grabbing doom and gloom?
I don't think it's the end of Pixar, but I do think that we are going to witness some changes within Pixar. I don't know if it's leadership or bringing in a new crop of writers and animators, but something's got to change because they've now had I think the last three films have really sort of underwhelmed in the box office.
So there was one thing I also mentioned, and I'm just curious your thoughts on this, because we've talked about this before, especially when it came to Warner Brothers and HBO Max. But I think three of Pixar's what would have been theatrical releases were released directly to Disney Plus, and there is kind of this discussion around whether or not they're changing people's viewing habits or expectations for just waiting for streaming. And those three were Luca, Soul, and Turning Red, and they just went straight to Disney Plus. They did not have a theatrical release. So a lot of people are also saying that, hey, maybe this isn't necessarily Pixar and their storytelling brain trust and formula and all that, but also they've been, kind of during the pandemic training a lot of people who otherwise would have brought, their family out for a theatrical experience to stay home and wait for a streaming release. I mean, do you think that would affect it at all?
I don't think that is. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse came out and everybody went to see it. I
All right.
think
So
people
here's the
go
thing.
when there's a good movie to see
Yep.
it.
I really don't think so. And here's why. I think right now we're seeing real competition for Pixar at the box office. That's both Super Mario and
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo properties. And
Yep.
then now we're seeing Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, as well as now there's a new TMNT
Mm-hmm.
animation style that mirrors Spider-Man. But we're seeing obviously some established properties that people are familiar with. They're willing to pay to go see these at the theaters, and they have different animation styles than Pixar. They're fresh. They feel different. They feel energetic and fun in a way that I think Pixar maybe now is starting to feel a little formulaic. I think maybe it's like, we've seen that kind of,
Yeah.
Because I think TMNT is going to do really well, man. I want to go.
Well, I mean,
I think Mario's the highest grossing movie of this year.
Yeah, and I think it has nothing to do with a streaming release or something, because I believe it. I mean, it's owned by Universal, so it's probably, it's going to be released. They had a release date set for when it was coming out on Peacock. The difference is everybody saw that and was like, I want to go see that movie, kids and parents alike. And they went to see it multiple times.
Yeah, so I think the box office is actually proving that the direct to streaming is actually maybe a bit of a cop out excuse, where I'm like, I think people are willing to go.
I mean, for me, when I think about the last couple theatrically released Pixar films, Buzz Lightyear, Elementals, Strange Worlds, and Onward.
Yeah.
And none of them,
Strange World, not good.
None of them had the allure of the classic Pixar movie where you're like, yeah, I want to see that.
But do you get what I'm saying too? Like, look at like Strange World. Like, as cool as that might be, you look at that and you have to do a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of world building there. I'm not even 100% sure what that is. It just looked like a, adventure movie, I guess.
No, but it's not the same as, hey, it's toys in a toy box. Start walking around the house. Have fun.
Yeah, like you got to do a lot of establishment there on how this place works. Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to do. And it's hard to sell it because I can't just visually look at it in a couple seconds and be like, oh, that looks cool. Like toys come to life. You look at Strange World and I'm like, what is this?
I feel like the problem with Pixar, and this will be sorted out, I feel like the issue right now is they are suffering from intense groupthink. They had a string of so many successful hits, right? I mean, yeah. I remember in school, they would teach the Pixar model of writing and story development. And it worked, and it was a proven success. And I think the problem is when you have so many successes, you just assume that that what you're doing is right. And they just need an injection of a new perspective and some people to come in and think a little different, get them out of their current headspace, which is probably that ingenuity is what made them stand apart originally so much.
Yeah. No, and then like I said, that competition at the box office is quite impressive because I feel like, Super Mario, obviously it's based on a well-established property that people definitely are interested in going to watch. And it does kind of still have that visual style of, Pixar. It kind of has that, traditional 3D animation style. But you look at like Across the Spider-Verse, you look at TMNT, you're actually seeing competition for Pixar that is now pushing boundaries in new ways, in new art styles, and they're doing things that feel fresh and energetic. Versus, I think for a long time, Pixar's main competition was like DreamWorks Animation, but that looked like a Pixar movie.
Yeah.
In essence, they felt like, the Despicable Me's, the, Ice Age, all of that. So I think the competition too is just maybe stepping up their game a little bit, and Pixar is going to have to, they're going to regroup. But I think, like you said, they do have one of the great brain trusts in, all of animation studios, but even over the last probably 2 decades, I mean, they've just produced hit after hit after hit. So, I can't wait to see what they do next. Now, speaking of that, you had sent me an article that was referencing that Walt Disney Studios is celebrating 100 years of existence this year, and they want to release some classics back in the theaters. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was going to actually bring that up with you and our audience. So obviously we've kind of complained a bit about on this podcast many times about the lack of things that were done the right way. We're just talking about how the new Pixar movies don't feel like the old Pixar movies. We talked about how we didn't like all the live action movies of the classics, and whether Walt Disney is rethinking their box office strategy here or just wants to, celebrate their 100th anniversary. They are releasing 8 films starting in July through October, conveniently kind of ending before the next Marvel movie comes out in November. These are the titles. Are you interested in seeing them? The first is Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
the original Toy Story,
Yep, 100%.
Frozen,
I never saw it in theaters, but I'd give it a shot.
Beauty and the Beast,
Absolutely, 100%.
The Incredibles.
That one maybe.
Okay. Coco,
Maybe.
The Lion King,
Yes.
and Moana.
Maybe.
Okay. I mean, but of those like 8 movies, it sounds like there's about 5 or 6 that you're down to see. And I'm in agreement
Well,
with you.
the one honestly that I probably want to see the most is Curse of the Black Pearl. Like that movie is awesome. And to see it on the big screen again would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Toy Story. Like there was something so magical in the 90s about Toy Story that I think still holds up today. And I bet it's just as fun to watch it on the big screen as it was back then. Some of the other ones, I'm like, yeah, I have them on streaming. I don't know if I'd pay. But here's the thing, CP, we talked about this. If I'm gonna, go all in this summer and just go get that AMC Stubs pass, I'd probably go see them all.
I mean, why not, right? Those are
Yeah.
movies that are good, you've seen before, but I mean, you haven't seen some of them in, 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like I feel like if I had the pass, I would try to go see them all. If I didn't have the pass and I had to pay for each one, I'd see probably about half of them.
wow.
Like, for instance, I don't know, if you grew up on Moana, you might want to go see Moana, where I grew up on Beauty and the Beast and Lion King. So those are
Yeah,
my picks. But I
fair,
could see
fair
where,
enough.
hey, if those are like, for me, if that was like, it's like, oh, we're releasing like Snow White, I might be like, nah. Even though
Hmm.
I know Snow White's significance, to animation in general, but just to Disney in general.
Yeah.
So, but that might not be one that I'd be excited to be like, oh my God, I got to go see Snow White. I'm like, no, I got to
Yeah.
go see The Lion King. Come on.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I'm just excited because again, I mean, what a great way to, rake in a little bit of fix the balance sheets for Disney because it's a proven success. But again,
I
as
know.
a film lover, I'm like, we haven't seen these movies in the theater in a really long time, and I would love to go see some, things that is a proven success.
It's like a license to print money. Yeah, dig into your vault and pull out your old classics and see if you can get people to go see them. I mean, I'm a person that definitely does this. I think we've talked about it on this show already. I went and saw Lord of the Rings: Return of the King and Star Wars: Return of the Jedi, both in theaters, both movies I have access to at home, could watch it anytime I want, and yet it went back in the theater, and there I am paying good money to go see, a movie that I have. So
Right.
yeah, I have a feeling I will go see some of these in theaters. I love the theater experience. It's just so much fun. And I think, when you're guaranteed to love the movie you're going to see, it's like, how can you
Yeah.
not?
How can you not? So, speaking of the theater experience,
Mhm.
I saw an article also that I wanted to run by you about the new Spider-Man.
Okay.
I don't know if I have not seen it yet. I don't know if you have, but my understanding is that there are in fact multiple endings. Well, not multiple endings, but multiple versions of the same film in theater simultaneously.
You know what? I did see a tweet about this. And yeah, I think it was described as, which of course it makes sense that they would say this. There are multiple variants, but variations because it's dealing with a multiverse. But in essence, it sounded like what they were doing was maybe having different versions of the film where maybe one line would be said in this one, but in the next one it's cut, or there might be a joke here that's not in another version. And apparently this was intentional. That's what got my
Mhm.
attention.
Hmm.
Was not, it wasn't that, oh, hey, we mistakenly sent out a few reels of a different version. And, it's like old action figure collectibles, when like Luke Skywalker had the super long lightsaber and they're like,
Yeah.
we just made wrong versions.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like apparently this was intentional. Now, obviously they are playing with a multiverse and they're obviously having fun with their audience, but now that you bring it up, what I'm interested in, CP, is would you be down to see this happen in other movies where you're getting different variations? Do you think this would allow people the opportunity to return to the theater to see the same movie more than once? Or, do you think ticket stubs or something about like collectibles would be important because it's like, hey, I got to see that version and it only ran in, 10 theaters?
Hmm.
I don't know. It's an interesting topic
I think
because if you get a classic, right? I feel like this only works if the movie works. If it's like Star Wars and you had different variations, I would go to the theater again. With
Mhm.
now, but here's the thing, and this is I don't know, I have no idea if this is true. If you know what variation you're getting when you buy a ticket. So is
Yeah.
it random? Are you opening up your Pokemon cards to see who your foil card
Yeah.
is, or you're like, no, okay, I want to go see that variation and I'm going to pay.
Now you're like, now I got to go to this theater to get this other variation.
Yeah.
I don't know. On one hand, it's got to be frustrating as a viewer. But on the other hand, I think it's incredible, and I love the idea, and I think it's a great motivation to get people back to the theater. The only other time I know this was really attempted was with the now cult classic Clue movie from the 80s,
Oh
where
yeah,
they
man.
released the film with different endings. But to my understanding, the movie wasn't that successful in the box office during the initial run, which may be why studios haven't tried this since.
Yeah, I do like the experimentation here. I like the idea of trying something new and seeing what sticks. I think you made mention right when you brought this up that the movie itself is using different lines of dialogue or maybe different jokes at various points, but they're not actually changing the overall story arc of the film. Or,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a kind of like choose your own adventure scenario where
Yeah.
like, hey, you can go see this version of the movie and it's like totally different. It doesn't sound like it's totally different. It does seem like they're just messing around with some few, basic details, but that is interesting because I feel like, especially with all this comic book multiverse, right? We're
Yeah.
in the right space for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You could start to mess around with this where it's like, there are literally not only are there different versions of the same character, but there's different versions of the movie you're actually watching. That's fascinating. I don't know. That's very interesting to me. And a little bit more fun, I think, because we talked last week about The Flash, right?
Yeah.
And how it felt a little bit formulaic for the multiverse. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe if you start playing around, if all these movies are going to be, in the multiverse sandbox, you actually start playing around with like different versions of the movie itself, which is
Well,
pretty
I'm
wild.
I'm immediately thinking of Doctor Strange too, right? There's that
Yeah.
whole sequence where they're jumping through different parallel universes. What an awesome way to kind of have fun with that idea if you were to implement something like this, and the sequence of as they're appearing in all these different, alternate realities, each, there's different actual runs of the same film. So
Yeah.
every time you watch it, you're not sure what versions of the realities are going to be. And I think it's a cool idea. It would be a lot of fun. So I'm
I
glad
think
they're
it's actually,
trying it with
yeah.
this.
I actually do think that would be pretty cool. It reminds me a little bit of like, have you ever been on Star Tours at Disneyland?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Where like, hey, every time like the ride itself is the ride, but like you never know which planets you're going to go to, and you can ride that same ride multiple times, of
Yep.
which I do ride it multiple times because
Yeah.
every time I'm like, well, where are we going to go?
Where are we going to go?
So, I mean, obviously that does play into a lot of the overall criticisms of some of these, tentpole box office comic book movies being like theme park rides. And I don't want to dive into that whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
Scorsese and all these guys' criticism. But I mean, why not at the same time? Like, that's kind of cool. And I think that's what we were getting at last week when we were talking about like, you know, the Flash is borrowing these multiverse elements from Endgame, from Spider-Man. It's not being innovative, right? In I
Mm-hmm.
think the way that it's like, hey, I mean, those happened and they were great and they made a lot of money. But now how do you take the idea of the multiverse and like push it further? And here it is, a true
Mm-hmm.
way, innovative way to look at it. And listen, I mean, DC, Marvel, you have, you know, everything everywhere all at once. Like the multiverse is here.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a lot of different properties.
Yep.
There's these shared universes and different things. It feels like you could really have some fun with this. So either on that kind of just interesting like multiple version level, or you could actually go down different multiversal paths where you have variants of say Doctor Strange, where the ending of the movie is different. Like you said, like he falls down that multiversal thing and he's like here, here, here. Well, what if in one movie he ends up in this multiverse and another movie he ends up in this one, and you end up going down different paths, and now we have, Doctor Strange in two different multiverses.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That'd be really cool. I think that would be really innovative. That's what I'm talking about, CP. That's what I'm talking about with multiverse innovate. I'd love to see them do some stuff like this and really, change how movies work. That's what I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
We got there. Finally. Yes. That's exciting to me. I don't know. Now, audience, listeners, I got to throw this to you guys. I mean, is this something that you would even be willing to invest in? I mean, now we have to pay to see the same movie twice. I kind of think it would be fun, and I probably would. It might get wild, but I'm like kind of down for it.
Well, I agree, and I think it depends on what's the extent to the tweaks in each version.
Now, let me ask you a question. Let's take the multiverse aside here.
Okay.
And now we're just doing this with like, how would you feel if they did that with like a Judd Apatow film? Like there's just different versions. Then I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'd rather get the best version. I'd rather you just put together the best one, and that's the one I want to pay to see. You know what I mean? Like, what if there were like 3 variations of like Superbad where they have like, on the old DVDs, it's like deleted scenes where there's different jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you. That doesn't seem as appealing to me. I'm like, just make it as funny as it is. But with what we're talking about is especially, I think we're kind of already sort of primed in like the summer blockbuster comic book movie anyway, and sort of inclined to go see it more than once. I think that most people, if they're willing to go see a movie 2 times, they're like, well, I'll go see Endgame a second time. That's worth my money. So I think it's a little bit different than we're like, hey, this is a new Will Ferrell movie. Is anyone really going to go see it 2 or 3 times in the theater? I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of get that. Yeah, like, if you have a Disney animated film, the new princess movie, we don't really need different variations. I just think this is like a really cool idea in the comic book space, particularly in general with the multiverse, however that's being done. Mm-hmm. I just think that's where the true innovation is. So it's kind of cool. It's interesting. And I mean, Across the Spider-Verse is the perfect movie to start experimenting with something like that.
I'm so psyched. I think it's a cool idea. I did not know about it until you told me about it, and I was like, wow, this is incredibly innovative. So way to go, guys. Thank you for doing something new.
Yeah, and intentional. So listeners, that is a topic that I would love, Drucker, Ivor, I would love anybody that wants to send us their feedback. I'd love to hear what you guys think of that, because that's a crazy concept. That's getting really innovative now and kind of game changing for the multiverse. So let us know what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Agreed.
So CP, one of the things I want to talk about this week is it's the 4th of July.
Yay!
It's an American holiday, an American traditional week, and a week of fireworks and hot dogs and, all the mainstays, red, white, and blue, but also 4th of July movies, of course. Yeah, you got to watch some movies for the 4th of July. So I have a list compiled here, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this list, and then maybe rank, our top 3 from this list, of movies that we're going to watch or, watch for 4th of July that we would recommend.
Okay.
So now this list is actually, these are all really great movies. So I don't know that we're going to get so critical so much as I want to take a look at, is this really like a 4th of July American movie? So I do want to say that on this list, other than there's one movie, but generally I'm excluding war films here. I think that's maybe a slightly different genre.
Okay.
If that's cool. So, there's not going to,
that's fine.
We're not going to get Saving Private Ryan or, Gettysburg or anything on this list. But first up, and I totally think this is, but Forrest Gump. Now, I think Forrest Gump is literally an exploration of what made America during a very specific generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the movie has a lot of iconic American imagery. I mean, they do innovative things like having him literally shake the hand of at that time, I think it was Lyndon Johnson, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they put him in, American war scenarios, anti-war scenarios, right? He's literally, I think at one point he even is like in a Black Panther meeting.
Yeah.
Like they literally had, the movie is like encompassing America. And I think that's a great film to watch for 4th of July.
Uh, I would not. That is not a movie that in any way would I be like, oh yeah, this is totally a Fourth of July movie. But as you say it that way, it's the journey of America, kind of post World War II, through all the growing pains that we had, and it is very much a slice of Americana. Then we, as you said, with all the imagery and the historic moments that's for us present. I could see it. I've changed my mind. I think that definitely is something you could watch on the fourth.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
feels
I
like
could
I
see
don't
it.
know. And then I think they even have a scene where at one point, I mean, he literally is like on his porch stoop at his mom's old house and they're watching fireworks on 4th of July. Like,
True.
um, but yeah, I think that one definitely works for me. And that's a movie that I actually do love. I know people can be split on Forrest Gump a little bit, because
Mm-hmm.
he's such a I don't want to call him a passive character, but he just kind of is like moving through the film. He doesn't really change a whole lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is interesting because everything else changes around him. So anyway, I'm not going to dive into Forrest Gump. I think it's great. So number 2, NCP, I feel like this will probably make your list, but I mean, we just got to go straight up. Captain America.
Ooh. I mean, that's pretty pretty on the nose. It's almost too on the nose. Well, now I think the real question is this: are we talking original Captain America, or are we talking
You pick from the
Civil
trilogy.
War Captain America? Which of the
Winter
three?
Soldier.
Winter
I think
Soldier.
Winter Soldier is probably the one I'd watch. But I
Okay.
mean, the one that goes gung ho, like red, white, and blue, is the first one.
Yeah, that's true.
You,
Very true.
you know, so I think if I had to pick which one is most like 4th of July, I think I'm going with like Captain America: The First Avenger.
Okay, that works. I can see that.
That's not necessarily my opinion of which one's the best of the trilogy, but I think if you want to get patriotic, you want to watch a Captain America movie for 4th of July, I'd say go with number 1.
Fair enough. Agreed.
Now, would you watch it? There's so many good movies on this list. I don't know if that's the one that I'm going to pick, but if that's one that I had to pick, I'd absolutely be down.
I think as far as comic book movies go, it is the most appropriate for Fourth of July.
Most patriotic. All right, CP, next up, and you can take your pick here, but we're going to go Top Gun, either
Ooh.
Top Gun 1 or Maverick.
Okay.
Now, I think me personally, after how exhilarating Maverick was in the theaters, I mean, I'm probably going to go with Top Gun Maverick here, even though the original Top Gun has all the iconography that, is even borrowed by Maverick.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, man, Top Gun Maverick, just for the final, whole big spectacle mission alone is just totally worth it.
Yeah. I think it for me, I'm probably more inclined to watch as a celebration of America. I'm probably more inclined to watch the first one because, as you
Okay.
said, Top Gun Maverick is more a celebration of Top Gun.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I actually do agree with you. Yeah, I feel like Top Gun Maverick is, yeah, that's like the perfect way to put it. And where the first one, I mean, literally, I think it was a movie kind of like what was it? Like Jurassic Park made a bunch of people want to become what's the word I'm
Archaeologists
looking for?
or paleontologists,
Archaeologists. Yeah,
paleontologists,
paleontologists. Like Top Gun inspired a lot of people to join the Air Force. Like
or the Navy.
literally, or yeah, I guess yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, it's a Navy.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So next up on this list, this is a different way to go here, CP, but Hamilton.
Ooh,
So
like the musical, I would not put it on the list, and my reasoning is just this: I feel like the Hamilton that we've seen, which is essentially, for lack of a better term, some guy with a video camera recording the stage production. I don't think it does the Hamilton story and the Hamilton, musical justice on film. Now, if we get someone to come back through and actually make the cinematic musical film that it should be, then I would say absolutely add it to your list. It's worth watching. But the one
I
that's out there, I'm like, meh, it's go see it on stage. That's a better way than just watching the stage production, through your TV.
I mean, I kind of agree with you. I feel like, yeah, if instead of watching a movie, maybe go see it in person. But if all you have is your streaming service and you want to throw Hamilton on, I think it's actually a great movie for 4th of July weekend. And even the stage, production version of the movie, I think it's a great, you know, interesting version of American history. It's a great take on, a famous, American founder.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think that works for 4th of July. Now, next up, won't be the only baseball movie that makes our list, CP, but A League of Their Own.
I'm a little confused. Why are we watching this on the 4th of July? This
Well,
feels like a
baseball.
kickoff of baseball season.
Yeah,
movie.
it's like America's pastime. So
I don't know. I don't, because the problem is I don't even know if A League Leon is considered the best baseball movie.
No, probably not.
So if I'm watching a baseball movie, I would watch a lot of other ones before I worked my way down to A League of Their Own.
Okay,
so I'm going to say I'm not going to watch it. But
I do like this movie. I think baseball has, particularly through about, the end of the 20th century, had a very special place in, the heart of Americana. I think baseball was, America's pastime. And I could see where a baseball movie, whether it's this or like you said, there's actually quite a few of them that you could probably add here. That's probably not the one I would pick.
Okay.
But if that's your 4th of July movie, I respect it. All right. Now, CP, I know this one is a personal favorite for you. And, well, it's The Patriot with Mel Gibson.
Ooh. Yeah, I do love The Patriot.
Now, I said this is the one movie that I was like, there's not really any war movies. There's a war scene in Forrest Gump, and like Captain America is technically like in World War II. But this is a movie that like it is about the American Revolution. And it's a drama, a little bit of a dramatized version about a family, kind of picking up arms at that time. But I mean, man, if this doesn't just scream 4th of July.
Well, I mean, it's about the American Revolution. And surprisingly, there's not really that many movies about it in that light, from kind of the action, over the top, historical epic perspective. So I love it. I watch it every year. It's back in the 90s. Yeah, what is it, 99, when Mel Gibson made awesome epic movies. And it walks the line between being a war movie, but it's also this very personal journey of this man and his children. And I think it's weird in the sense that you can actually get people who don't like war movies to watch that one because of all the other stuff going on with the watching the revolution unfold with his family drama. I think it's a really good film. I love it.
I mean, to me, it screams 4th of July. So how can you not? Now, this one has 4th of July in the title, but you know who would watch it? Julian would watch it. And that's Born on 4th of July.
Ooh. I'm not gonna watch Born on the 4th of July.
Yeah, I don't think I'm picking
that one. That's way too heavy. I'm trying to have a good time, do some grilling, watch some fireworks, hang out.
I don't want to cheer. I want to be like, yes.
Yeah, this is like the opposite of that in every single way.
Yeah, I don't know. That one's tough. It gets into some dark material. I mean, it's very sad at various points. It's sad in some of its commentary of actually America.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It's a Tom Cruise movie where he's not doing awesome stunts.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm going to veto that one. That's not going to be one I watch.
All right, CP. We're heading into the golden movies of 4th of July here. So number 3, we're looking at Independence Day.
Ooh.
100%. I'm in. 100%. That movie is awesome.
It's great. And obviously the president's speech about our Independence Day, like that's like a fist bump moment if in cinema, if there is one.
It literally ends with fireworks in the sky, which is really just alien ships exploding
and landing on people down below. Yeah.
I mean, that movie is just amazing. I know obviously like the whole world comes together, but it's all thanks to, America's drive to be able to, defeat these invaders. And it's just such an awesome, and it literally happens on the 4th of July.
Yep.
Like incredible. That's just a great 4th of July movie. So I guarantee you that'll be on my list. Number 2, here we go, CP. I told you there was another baseball movie on here, and that is The Sandlot.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm definitely watching it. Obviously, the 4th of July scene is integral in the film. It's the only way they can play baseball at night. But more importantly, the setting, the decision to make it be, about people in the San Fernando Valley in the 60s, it feels very classic Americana. People going to barbecues, just everything about it screams like classic America.
Yeah. I mean, The Sandlot is just absolutely a fun movie. It's a movie that if you have it on, it'll just make you want to be a kid.
So just quick side note, I actually heard on the Rich Eisen show, he was talking about The Sandlot with some of the cast members, and the kids were talking about how James Earl Jones came to the set for only one day. Because, wow. I mean, he's not in the movie for that long, but they were all obviously they knew who he was, right? They're 13-year-old kids. They're growing up in the 80s. They've seen Star Wars.
Darth Vader, yeah.
And one of the kids worked up the nerve to go up to him and say, excuse me, sir, you're Darth Vader, right? And apparently James Earl Jones didn't miss a beat, and he just turns around and he goes, no, I am your father. And I'm like, how freaking cool is that? Way
That's
to go,
amazing.
James Earl Jones.
Yeah. Oh, that movie's just fantastic. And I actually, I'm watching that for sure. So, and then number 1, CP. I don't know if there's any other movie for 4th of July better than Jaws.
Yeah, it's tough to beat. Great 4th of July movie. I mean, obviously the story centers around 4th of July.
Yep, 4th of July weekend. It's a huge tourist trap on Amity Island. And a dangerous shark comes and takes everybody out. And I mean, it's just an amazing American movie.
I mean, obviously, you don't really need an excuse to watch Jaws, unless you're Sean. But
shout out, Sean.
What a great 4th of July movie.
All right. So of those films, CP, and I throw this out to our audience, our listeners too, if you guys want to send us your list, we'd love to hear them. But CP, which would be the top 3? What are the movies that you're definitely going to watch on 4th of July weekend?
Ooh, for me, I'm definitely watching The Sandlot. I'm definitely watching The Patriot, and I'm definitely watching Jaws. Like, how could I not?
All right. I think I'm going to have to go. I feel like the movie's so cool. I don't know. It just gets me so pumped up. I think I'm going to go Top Gun Maverick.
Okay.
Forrest Gump and Independence Day.
Okay. I actually really want to watch Forrest Gump now because you kind of sold me. I think it definitely counts as a 4th of July movie.
And I mean, I don't even care. I'll just
thought about it, but yeah.
I'm just going to put The Sandlot and Jaws on while I sleep.
I think you do that already.
Yeah, I feel like I just got to have them on. Like, man, that is awesome. So anyway, to our listeners, like I said, go ahead and send us your list. We'd be interested to hear what you guys are watching for the holiday weekend. And not only that, but CP, that does it for our episode this week.
Does it, huh?
Yeah. So hopefully everybody enjoyed the movie discussion and some of the innovations coming out of the theater. And maybe, just maybe, after 100 years, Disney's going to turn it all around. So
finally, right?
No, they literally have dominated the box office for the last decade. So this is probably just a little bump in the road for them. They're good. They're good to go. So, and I mean, come on, what's more American than Walt Disney and Disney films,
Very true.
Yeah. I mean, Walt Disney himself loved America. Go look at the original version of what Disneyland was. And this guy just let red, white,
Main Street USA. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He just loved America. So anyway, to everybody that tuned in, thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to continue the conversations on social media. And you can find all of our social media pages and a feed of the show at filmmakerscompass.com, where we have all our links and everything. You could follow me at Big Kid Dman and CP.
You could follow me at NDCal5. Thanks for hanging out and talking movies with us this weekend. We will see you back here next week. Until then, keep watching movies.